Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome wherever you are, whenever you are, whoever you are. My name is J. Eve Marie, and welcome back to another Soul episode. Today's topic is self-care. Choose you, honey. So, just to start off today, let's go ahead and read the Oxford definition for self-care. It states here the practice of taking action to preserve one's own well being. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that. The practice of taking action to preserve one's own well being. Now, oftentimes when we think of self care, we think of manicures and bath bombs and shopping sprees. So these things can very much represent a form of self-care. Yet based on the definition that we've just read, we know that it goes deeper than this. Essentially, when we speak about self-care today, we are talking about choosing your own best interest instead of sacrificing your peace for an alternative route. Now, let me give you some examples of choosing yourself and choosing self-care. Self-care is when you're invited to a family gathering, yet you know the track record of toxicity that you have experienced in the past at these events. Instead of partaking, you may choose a day at the beach with your friends or traveling by yourself to explore a new town. You could choose anything, really. Choose something that adds value to your life instead of going back to your family to partake in these situations. Now, we're not, and this is just a very vague situation. So, we're not talking about cutting off your family. That's a very specific thing, and that if that applies to you. Um, Yet here we're talking about, like we said, it's a toxic family, and instead of partaking in that, it's okay to decide to do something else. Let's say your friends are trying to get you to go out for a night of partying. However, you have already decided to cut back because your quality of sleep and your mental acuity that you have the next day means more to you. Now, we're not saying that your friends, again, don't mean anything to you. Yet what we are saying is that you could partake in other things with them. Things that don't hinder your sleep. Things that still help you stay focused and awake. So in this instance, when they're trying to get you to go out, you might decide to stay home and read and watch a movie, or you might decide to work on a project that you put down. It could be anything. In reality, it's anything besides that partying. Yet again, partying is just an example for that thing that you're trying to stay away from. Let's go ahead and give another example. What if the boss wants you to pick up overtime at work for the third time this week, even though A, you're feeling overworked and overwhelmed, and B, this was not in the contract or job description when you were hired? You may or may not comply out of fear of losing your job, which is very much understandable, especially in today's world. Yet, you could begin searching for a new position rather than reliving this experience over and over and over. So instead of just dealing with it and hoping that it ends one day, you could begin looking for another job once you get home from that overtime shift, because that is intense. This is actually the reason why I brought it up, is because that is something that I have experienced multiple times in my life. And sometimes you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place because, we have bills, you got to pay rent. Yet I am not down for being mistreated. So again, that's why I say, like, a lot of these situations you got to treat with care. I do say that in a lot of my videos. And why this situation, specifically this example, is a little different because of the obligation factor. And obligation is a very tricky thing. It's very, very tricky. It's kind of like guilt, or more often, it is guilt, or something of the form. Like I said, the last obligation was your rent. You have your rent to be paid. And the first example is the obligation of family and the family structure. Obligation can make us do things that we know A, we don't want to do, and B, we really shouldn't do. But we're going to do them and try to please these people because it's what we believe that is the right thing to do. So obligation is something that we really need to be careful about. So, what did we talk about today? Well, self-care means choosing you in any form, and sometimes that requires saying no to something else. And like we just talked about, especially if partaking in that thing is only out of obligation and it is not helping you. So, choose you, honey. Choose you. So, thanks for joining us today on another episode of our Soul, aka Student of Life. Now, I was your host. My name is J. Eve Marie, and I wish you all the best on your SO World journey. Bye.